After abandoning our identities to become an ordinary couple, both Huyen and I came to regret it. Thus, in this second life, we tacitly avoided all the opportunities that could have led us to meet again as in our previous lives. When we met again, he had already become the undefeated general, returning triumphantly to the capital, basking in boundless glory. By chance, we encountered a wedding procession, and he asked, "Who is getting married today?" Others, "The Pei family, Miss Pei II." "Why isn't Pei Wan, the eldest sister?" Seeing her off, Pei Wan is the bride. Hello, everyone, welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful novels every day. Now the story begins. When I learned that Huyen did not attend the Prime Minister's flower viewing banquet, I realized he had also been reborn. In my previous life, as the daughter of a minor official, I was seated in the most remote corner, when I was mocked and ridiculed. It was he who happened to pass by and came to my defense. That was the beginning of our ill-fated love. As for why it was called ill-fated, it was probably because we fell in love afterward, only to face opposition from our families. One night, he climbed through my window, took my hand, and said, "Wan, I won't be a general anymore, and you won't be a young lady. Let's escape together, find a paradise, and be together forever." I was so moved that I hastily packed my belongings and feigned death with him to escape from Jinling. We were both too young at that time, unaware that leaving behind our privileged lives of luxury would only bring us endless suffering. The land we needed to cultivate was too hard, and the young master who had never done manual labor ended up with blisters all over his hands. The coarse linen clothes were too rough, and the young lady who had never done hard work developed rashes. At first, we could still numb ourselves with love, embracing each other for warmth, and he felt guilty. Wan, it's all my fault for being useless, unable to give you a good life. The young master of the Hua family had always been proud, believing that even without his family, he could still achieve great things. So when he decided to elope, he took nothing but the clothes on his back. I did bring some valuables with me, but they were all spent after buying the house. Hearing this, she shook her head and smiled. "Husband, you can grow crops, and I can earn money by embroidering. We have hands and feet. And as long as I can be with you, Awan doesn't feel wronged." Though she said so, as time went by, the news arrived that the second young master of the Hua family had returned triumphant and was conferred the title of General Anwu. Huyen, who was fertilizing the crops with cow dung, fell silent. That night, he sat by the window all night after I had fallen asleep. He must have thought about how this battle was originally meant for him to fight. His attitude towards me has grown much colder. He began to frequently lose focus. He often inquired about the second young master of the Hua family. It is said that he made a name for himself in a single battle, greatly pleasing the emperor. Not only did his official career flourish, but he was even betrothed to a princess. It was truly a sight to behold. He was completely engrossed in listening. He even forgot that last night he had promised to come back early today to take me to see the doctor. During these days on the run, we were very poor, and I didn't want to spend all the hard-earned silver we had saved just to see a doctor once. So what I said at the time was, "It's just that I'm feeling a bit unwell, nothing serious." Yet Huyen was unusually resolute. "It's just seeing a doctor once. I told you before, even after leaving the general's mansion, Huyen, can still take care of you." He seemed to want to prove something. Or perhaps the tale of second young master Hua had spread so far that it became a story of selling medicine for the princess's sake, exuding boldness and grandeur. I opened my mouth, looking at this familiar yet somewhat unfamiliar face, and finally nodded. "I'll wait for my husband to return." The snow fell heavily in the winter. The thin winter clothes offered little protection against the biting wind, chilling to the bone. Huyen had not returned. Braving the heavy snow and fighting through my dizzy, weak state, I found him in the tavern. He was dead drunk. The tavern keeper saw me. "Lady Pei, you've finally come. The wine bill must be paid in full, no credit allowed." I glanced at the ledger and was shocked. How could it be so expensive? In the past, this would have been just the cost of one of my hairpins, but now, we've long since left the family, and this is all the savings Huyen and I have managed to scrape together over so long. "Expensive," the tavern owner scoffed. "If it's too expensive, why come for a drink?" And claiming to be the elder brother of the Hua family's second young master, "Have you lost your mind? Pathetic, who do you think you are?" I was speechless. Huyen suddenly stood up and slammed the boss against a pillar. "You look down on me, even you look down on me. I am Hua Lin's elder brother, and who allowed you to speak to her in that tone? She's my woman. Apologize. Why you? This is causing trouble." The tavern owner stuttered in fear. I whispered, "Hui Yen, let it go." Hui Yen remained silent. A punch landed on the tavern owner's face. Then came the second punch, and the third. Hui Yen, I couldn't take it anymore. At this moment, the tavern owner couldn't take it anymore. I was wrong. Hui Yan's fist stopped. I was wrong. All right, I was wrong. Spare me. Spare me. I won't dare do it again, he insisted. I am Hua Lin's elder brother. The tavern owner nodded vigorously. You're Hua Lin's elder brother, you are. He released his grip, and the tavern owner collapsed to the ground, scrambling away in fear, yet his own figure swayed unsteadily. I stepped forward to support him. Hui Yen, let's go home. The next second, he suddenly pushed me away. The chairs and tables behind me slammed into my soft flesh, the sharp pain making my vision go dark in waves, yet all I could hear was Hui Yan's drunken voice. Why? I should have been the one to make a name for myself in battle. It is I who should have a prosperous official career, even, he paused in his tone and said, it is I who should marry the princess. I completely froze, the pain in my body seeming to numb. Yet he remained, I regret it. The next day, when he woke up, he saw me as busy as ever. He shook his head. Awan. I paused at his words, then turned back with my usual smile and said, you're awake, the food is almost ready. Just wait a little longer. There's also hangover soup on the table. At the mention of alcohol, Hui Yan's expression froze, and he suddenly asked me nervously, I was drunk yesterday, did I say anything? My expression remained unchanged. You just slept when you were drunk, what else could you have said? He let out a sigh of relief, stepped forward to take my hand, pulled me into his embrace, and uttered the first sweet words in 3 months, Awan, having you as my wife is truly wonderful. I just stared at the mound of earth in the courtyard and suddenly thought of my father. He was neither a high-ranking nor a low-ranking official, yet in Jinling City, he was renowned for his devotion to his wife. Everyone said that Lord Pei was wholeheartedly devoted to his lady. And there wasn't a single concubine in his household, but only I knew that he kept a beautiful mistress outside. Every time he returned from visiting her and saw my mother's concerned face, he always felt somewhat guilty, so for a period after that, he would treat my mother exceptionally well. As for me, hearing his words, I could only force a smile and say, I feel the same way. Not at all. Hui Yen thought only he had regrets, but just this morning, I heard that my younger sister got married. And among the 10-mile bridal procession were 2 of Lady Pei's most precious jade hair ornaments. Those were truly exquisite pieces, meticulously crafted by artisans, priceless. Just a few scraps would be enough to keep Hui Yen and me well-fed and comfortable for quite some time. Among them, one set was prepared by mother for me. At that moment, I regretted it too. Fortunately, there's still time for everything, because the moment I opened my eyes, I realized both Hui Yen and I had been reborn. Reborn before our first encounter at the flower viewing banquet. This time, he didn't come. When my younger sister asked if I wanted to sneak a peek at the men's banquet, I didn't go. Throughout the entire feast, I remained unusually quiet, cautious in every way. Even when those noble ladies mocked and ridiculed me, I didn't retort at all. My younger sister, Pei Shu, was astonished. Why has elder sister changed her temper today? You must know, although I was never one with a fiery temper. If truly bullied by a group, I wouldn't have just swallowed my anger in the past. I simply smiled. It's just a few words. Seeking momentary satisfaction would only bring endless troubles. Just like in my past life when I followed Hui Yen away from home for fleeting love, I suffered no end of hardships. Now, as merely the daughter of a minor official, these noble ladies might at most look down on me and say a few words. But if a real conflict arises, with just a casual gesture from them, I could face endless bitter days. Moreover, I am no longer the naive Pei Wan of my maiden days. Having tasted bitterness and stumbled hard, I've come to understand, what are a few quarrels? All I want is a lot of money, and even more, a lot of power. Is that so? The little sister puffed her cheeks. At just 14, she understood nothing, her eyes brimming with curiosity. Big sister, isn't that just the legendary young master Hua, not far away, on the riding and archery field? Hui Yen was advancing irresistibly, full of vigor and high spirits. Countless noble ladies were utterly captivated. My younger sister was one of them, but alas, her voice was too loud and her status too low. The next moment, she was knocked to the ground by Du Qianer, the daughter of the Minister of Revenue, who sneered, "You, how dare you compete with me? How could someone like you ever dream of young Master Hua? Exactly, your father is just a minor official, common as dirt in Jinling. What are you flaunting here? Truly beneath notice. A person's worth lies in self-awareness. It seems Miss Pei lacks just that." The noble ladies around her sneered and mocked. "I don't." The younger sister was at a loss, her eyes brimming with tears and confusion. "I didn't mean to compete with you." Little did she know, Du Qian'er's gaze turned icy as she raised her hand high. "You? How dare you address me as you?" The force behind her raised hand was not light. If it truly landed, it might leave a mark on the younger sister's face. For an unmarried woman, any blemish on her face could become a significant obstacle when discussing marriage prospects in the future. Du Qian'er had always been domineering, or perhaps, what she truly wanted was to leave a scar on her younger sister's face. Unfortunately for her, she didn't get her wish. A hand firmly grasped her wrist. The expected pain did not come. The younger sister opened her eyes, and tears fell. "Elder sister, Miss Du. My younger sister may be impolite, but this is the flower viewing banquet hosted by the Prime Minister's wife. By any measure, it is not your place to discipline a guest." My voice was steady. Du Qian'er narrowed her eyes. "Are you threatening me? Who do you think you are? Your father is just a minor official, and your mother is merely a merchant's daughter. Even if they came to plead in person today, they wouldn't be worthy of standing before my Du family." The commotion here was quite noticeable and soon drew the attention of others. The male guests heard the noise. "What's going on here? Looks like another woman is causing a scene over young Master Hua. Which of these young ladies doesn't gaze at young Master Hua with starry eyes? But if I'm not mistaken, that should be the daughter of Minister Du. That young lady has quite the temper. Cross her and you'll regret it." The one next to her, "I know her. Not from a prominent family. Must be from the Pei family." At the mention of Pei, Hui Yan's figure stiffened. He instinctively looked over, only to see a familiar and upright figure with its back turned. In his ears, the voices of others were loud. "Master Hua, she suffered for your sake. Won't you go and mediate? Don't let the young lady face undeserved misfortune." "I heard it too." The air fell silent for a moment, then came Hui Yan's voice, unreadable in tone. "A man going to the women's seating area is improper by etiquette. But in the previous life, it was he who personally stood in front of me and spoke up for me." At this moment, I could finally be certain, Hui Yan had also been reborn, and in this life, he was ready to sever the ill-fated ties and choose a different way to live. I should be sad, after all. In our past life, a day as husband and wife brings 100 days of kindness, yet, I only felt a wave of relief. Thankfully. He regretted it too. Then from now on, we'll each go our separate ways. With no debts between us, I gathered my thoughts, raised my eyes, and looked at Du Qian'er. If Miss Du thinks so, then Pei Wan has nothing more to say, but as for my younger sister, Miss Du must not lay a finger on her. Du Qian'er had never been humiliated like this before, especially in front of the admired eldest son of the Hua family. Her face twisted in anger as she raised her other hand. "Let's see if you dare talk back to me again." The slap came too fast for anyone to react. Yet to a martial artist, it was nothing but slow motion. Hui Yan instinctively stepped forward, but then memories of our elopement in his past life flashed through his mind as he watched my retreating figure. Suddenly, he gritted his teeth, stopped, and I stood my ground, watched unflinchingly as that slap came down. At this very moment, "Miss Du," a voice suddenly rang out, causing Du Qian'er to halt her movements. The speaker emerged from the crowd, beaming with a smile, their tone exceptionally warm and enthusiastic. "What's so interesting? Why is everyone gathered in one place?" It was none other than the hostess of this flower-viewing banquet, the Prime Minister's wife, with the host present. If Du Qian'er were to actually start a fight, it would mean causing a scene. She might look down on the Pei family, but she couldn't afford to offend the Prime Minister's household, who made the Du family so prosperous. It was all thanks to the support and promotion from the Prime Minister's residence, for Minister Du was once the Prime Minister's disciple. But before she could think of a response, I had already replied with a smile. Indeed, it was quite amusing. Miss Du and I hit it off immediately and were just fooling around. The dispute among noble ladies was lightly dismissed as mere horseplay. Du Qian'er couldn't refute it and could only secretly shake off my hand. I remained composed and bowed to the Prime Minister's wife. "Pei Wan pays her respects to Madam." She took in everything with a deep glance. "So it is, you must be the child of Lord Pei's family, aren't you?" "He's a good child." The flower viewing banquet passed without any real danger. Though not without its scares, even as she boarded the carriage, the younger sister still couldn't snap out of her daze. On the way back, they happened to see Du Qian'er shyly twisting her handkerchief at Huyen. The next second, she stuffed the handkerchief into his hand and ran off without looking back. Huyen didn't dodge, but he didn't throw it away either. He stood there holding the handkerchief. How could the eldest son of the Hua family take a liking to someone like this? The little sister's facade shattered into pieces. She still hadn't forgotten how Du Qian'er had tried to hit her moments ago. I just watched quietly, speaking in an even tone. Whether others look down on us or not is their business. It has nothing to do with you or me, Ash. We just need to focus on ourselves. My younger sister has always listened to me since childhood. Upon hearing this, she nodded vigorously. I'll do whatever you say, elder sister. The spring breeze lifted the curtain. Huyen turned around and happened to see me. How strange. He suddenly hid the hand holding the handkerchief behind his back, as if guilty like a thief, seemingly wanting to explain something. Awan, I didn't mean to. What is there to explain? After all, we've long since had nothing to do with each other. I didn't listen further and ordered the coachman, return to the residence. The curtain fell. Huyen, left farther and farther behind, stood rooted to the spot, staring blankly and bewildered at the receding carriage. In the blink of an eye, March arrived, and Huyen was about to go to war. In our previous life, we were deeply in love with each other. To be together, we both gave up our statuses and became an ordinary couple. Thus, the one who went to war became the second young master of the Hua family. He regretted it, so it's not hard to understand why in this life he volunteered, with the second young master of the Hua family as his deputy. They set off in grand style, with many noble ladies who admired him secretly seeing him off from the taverns in Jinling. Some say the eldest son of the Hua family kept looking back, as if searching for someone, or perhaps waiting for someone. Perhaps among these people was the one who had already captured his heart. My little sister told me this as an amusing anecdote. Ever since the flower viewing banquet, elder sister hasn't stepped out the door again. All she does is focus on embroidery and reading. I hope she doesn't make herself ill. Mother, however, sighed and said, whoever that girl is, she must be very fortunate indeed. She had never imagined that the girl would be one of her own daughters. On the contrary, with such a vast difference in family backgrounds, if it were true, it would not be a blessing but rather a misfortune. After all, the Hua family would never allow their son to marry the daughter of a minor official as his principal wife. I remained silent. At this moment, the maid came to announce, the Prime Minister's wife has arrived, a high-ranking noblewoman. Her purpose in coming was to propose a marriage alliance. This seemed almost too unreal to be true. But what if the man proposed is a sickly widower? That young man is my husband's favorite student, though his health isn't the best. He married once, but his wife passed away shortly after entering his household. Now, his family doesn't want him to be left alone, so I thought of Miss Pei. The Prime Minister's wife turned her gaze toward me. At the flower viewing banquet the other day, I noticed Miss Pei took a particular liking to him. But that sickly man didn't just lose his wife right after marriage. They hadn't even completed the wedding ceremony yet. Now, all of Jinling is spreading rumors that he's not only sickly but also brings misfortune to his wives. They say it's about arranging another marriage, but isn't it just a desperate attempt to find someone to ward off his impending doom? My mother couldn't possibly miss the implication. Furious but constrained by the other party's status, she could only say, thank you for your kindness, madam, but my daughter is still young. I cherish her dearly and wish to keep her with me for another year or two. What do you mean by keeping her? The Prime Minister's wife has made the offer herself. It's a great honor and a blessing for our daughter, my father countered almost immediately. His eyes had already lit up the moment he heard the Prime Minister's wife had come in person. He had reached this official position where further promotion was originally difficult. But if he could attach himself to the Prime Minister's residence, who could say for sure? My mother, who understood her husband all too well, paled at these words and still wanted to intervene. Master, the Prime Minister's wife merely glanced over with a silent smile, took a sip of tea, and said lightly, gentlemen, why not ask Miss Pei herself if she's willing? At these words, everyone turned to look at me, and all I asked was, does the other family have any assets? With a fortune of 10,000 strings of cash, it would suffice to keep Miss Pei in comfort for 10 lifetimes and more. And what of influence? In Jinling City, every household would show her some deference. She was still waiting for me to inquire about her talents, beauty, and other qualities, but I had finished asking, she said. Then I am willing to marry, this time. Even the Prime Minister's wife was surprised. She thought I would at least hesitate. After all, it's a lifelong commitment, and the other party is a sickly man who brings misfortune to his wives. But I don't care. In my previous life, having witnessed my mother's forced smiles and unhappy marriage with my father, I decided to live differently this time. I faked my death with Huyen and left to live as an ordinary couple, but I'm not happy either. Even so, I won't choose it anymore. What's all this talk of love and affection? It's just an illusion. It can't put food on the table. What can put food on the table is money and power. I'd marry him even if he were a sickly wife killer. Let alone a dead man. My final question, when is the wedding? The Prime Minister's wife, delighted by the quick agreement, hastily replied, the 8th day of the 8th month. It's an auspicious date. That day was indeed a good day, not just for the wedding. It was also the day Huyen returned in triumph. As expected, he achieved a great victory, was conferred the title of ever-victorious general, and returned to the capital in glory, basking in boundless honor. On my way here, I saw the streets bustling with excitement. It must be someone's wedding celebration. I couldn't help but feel a pang of emotion. After all, in my previous life, since we faked our deaths to leave, we didn't take much money with us. Our wedding was just a simple affair with a bit of red silk. I didn't even have a proper wedding dress, just a single red flower in my hair. Back then, he was filled with guilt. Just wait a little longer, Awan, just a little longer. Once I've established my career, I'll surely give you a grand wedding. But in the end, he never fulfilled that promise. He admitted that he did regret it afterward, having grown accustomed to a life of luxury, returning to plain tea and simple rice with no achievements to his name. He regretted it every single moment. So when he heard that his second brother had been promoted again, he got thoroughly drunk. At that time, he thought, if he could do it all over again, if he had another chance, he definitely wouldn't make the same choice. Thus, when he opened his eyes again and returned to the moment everything began, the first thought upon seeing me was to escape. It should have been like this. We had never met, never had anything to do with each other. But why, when he took Du Chiener's handkerchief and saw Pei Wan, did he feel so flustered and guilty? Huyen had never been able to figure it out. It wasn't until these past days of constant battles outside that his subordinates noticed something was off and asked him about it. He concealed some details but voiced his confusion. His subordinates, however, understood clearly and said nonchalantly, "What's so difficult about this? Just make that woman your concubine and marry someone of equal status as your wife. Problem solved." No, but how could she be a concubine? Huyen was stunned and blurted out instinctively, "Why not?" For the daughter of a minor official, becoming the general's concubine is a blessing from 8 lifetimes of good fortune. She should be overjoyed. Could she possibly be so ungrateful? His subordinates found this perfectly reasonable. With the general's exceptional talent, if she truly understands and admires him, she would naturally be magnanimous enough to fulfill his wishes. Huyen, he suddenly saw the light. Right, after all, he still loved Pei Wan. In his previous life, he and Pei Wan faked their deaths to leave because his family refused to let Pei Wan be his legal wife. And now, unwilling to give up, why not just make Pei Wan a concubine? After all, he wouldn't mistreat Pei Wan. It's just the title of a concubine. Pei Wan loves him so much, she wouldn't mind. Having figured this out, Huyen returned in high spirits. He happened to encounter a wedding procession, and in a rather good mood, he asked, "Who is getting married today?" Others replied, "The Pei family. Miss Pei II, why isn't the eldest sister, Pei Wan, here to see you off?" Pei Wan is the bride. Clang. On the streets of Jinling, everyone witnessed the ever-victorious general suddenly lose his composure, his long sword falling from his grasp, with an angry expression on his face. No one knows who upset him. Of course, he wasn't the only one unhappy. Just then, at the minister's residence of the Du family, the mother-in-law pointed at me and said to Du Chiener, "Chiener. Call her sister-in-law." What kind of sister-in-law is this? I refuse to be the sister-in-law of such a person. Du Chiener stamped her foot in anger, turned her head, and ran off. The scene fell silent for a moment. It seemed no one had expected the second Miss Du to be so willful. Under the red bridal veil, I couldn't see the expressions of others, but my mother-in-law merely let out an awkward laugh and said lightly, "Look at this child. Always mischievous since she was little. She must be jealous." afraid her elder brother won't dote on her as much after he marries. In just a few words, it was settled like this. Even if I were the most foolish, I would know this was my mother-in-law's way of asserting dominance on the very first day. Or perhaps it wasn't just her. My father-in-law remained silent by her side, while my brother-in-law was still drinking at the tavern, even boldly declaring, "A sickly man taking a wife, what bad luck, I won't go. And my husband is a rooster." Du Shengshu's eldest son, Du Rolin, was known as a child prodigy from a young age. If Du Shengshu was the old prime minister's prized disciple, then this child was brought over by Du Shengshu and raised single-handedly by the old prime minister. Unfortunately, heaven envies the talented. At the age of 10, he fell into water and became chronically ill. The imperial physicians spoke in obscure terms, but most gave the same verdict. This young master Du clearly bears the appearance of an early demise. From then on, naturally, no one in the family paid him any heed. Even the previous marriage arrangement was merely for the sake of the Du family's reputation, pairing him with a girl who was already on the verge of death. The second young master Du once mocked, "A sickly wretch matched with another sickly wretch. How wonderful it would be if they both died early." Alas! The girl passed away before the wedding ceremony could even be completed. From then on, the eldest son of the Du family became yet another laughingstock. Only the old prime minister and his wife cared enough to arrange this marriage. This was also why my mother had been so resistant when the prime minister's wife first proposed the match to me. "Our family may not be of noble birth, but we would never sell our daughter for wealth and status." "Awan, why did you agree to this marriage?" As soon as the prime minister's wife left, my mother pulled me aside and asked eagerly, "Indeed, my family is truly wealthy, not because of my father, but because of my mother." My mother was originally the daughter of a wealthy merchant, but in the hierarchy of scholars, farmers, artisans, and merchants, merchants were at the bottom. No matter how rich they were, the noble families still looked down on them. So she married my father, a minor official. I don't regret it, but I'll explain carefully. "Mother, marrying anyone is still marrying. So why not marry the highest I can reach? Whether this man is good or not, no one knows, but whether he's wealthy or powerful is immediately obvious. Even though the eldest son of the Du family is a sickly man and not highly regarded by the Du family, the old prime minister and his wife care deeply about him, just like earlier, after I agreed to the marriage. The prime minister's wife personally gave me her assurance, "My child, you need not worry. If you suffer any grievances after marrying into the family, just come to me, and I will stand by your side." It's clear that, given my status, the best marriage I could hope for is this one. Moreover, didn't father already agree? At the mention of my father, my mother's face stiffened, filled with resentment and anger. All these years, he's been keeping a mistress behind my back. Even fathering a bastard child, as long as it wasn't flaunted in my face, I could pretend not to know, but I never imagined that after all the years of marriage, he would sell his own daughter for the sake of his career. My father had been keeping a mistress, and she found out 3 years ago, but by then it was already too late. The mistress not only had been with him for many years but also bore him a son. Divorce was absolutely out of the question. Not to mention that my father's greatest reputation was his devotion to his wife. He would never allow anyone to expose the truth. As for the mistress and the child, my mother would never permit their existence. Let me divorce and leave a fortune to that adulterous couple and their bastard child. They wish, as long as I'm alive, they'll never set foot in this house. So you see, even my mother, who prided herself on her ability to manage her husband, couldn't fathom the depths of his heart. In my previous life, I tried living differently, but I still wasn't happy, so why should I hesitate now? I don't care whether the eldest son of the Du family is good or bad, nor do I care about the Du family's reputation. As long as marrying into the Du family as the eldest daughter-in-law ensures my material comfort and protects me from being bullied by anyone, these are the tangible benefits I can truly grasp. So, mother, I am willing to marry, now that the bride has entered the household. The sister-in-law shows a cold face, the mother-in-law and father-in-law give me a stern warning, and the younger brother-in-law shows no respect at all. My husband even used a rooster as a substitute. They thought I would feel embarrassed and humiliated. Yet little did they know, compared to my previous life where I couldn't finish plowing the fields, couldn't raise enough silkworms, couldn't embroider enough handkerchiefs, and couldn't serve Huayen enough, it was simply not worth mentioning. Indeed, when it comes to matters of love and affection, just go plow 2 acres of land and you'll settle down. So when my mother-in-law said this, I just replied softly, Chiener didn't mean it, and besides, Awan also has a younger sister. Seeing that Chiener's temperament is similar to my sister's, Awan finds it quite endearing. Nonsense, my little sister is the most obedient and sensible. She even cried sadly when seeing me off to my wedding, but when others heard my reply, they could only whisper among themselves, the minister's household had married such a sensible and understanding wife, while this second young lady was so domineering, truly unworthy of praise. My mother-in-law seemed not to have expected this outcome. Something flickered in her eyes, the smile at her lips faded, and she said coldly and stiffly, if that's the case, then let's proceed with the wedding ceremony, since Roland is frail, and my daughter-in-law is so understanding. Using a substitute shouldn't be an issue, of course I wouldn't mind. I'm marrying into the title of Madame Du, not her son, whether it's a chicken or even a dog standing in, I'll bow to complete this ceremony. I calmly knelt down, the master of ceremonies shouting in my ear, first bow to heaven and earth. The rooster beside me flapped its wings, second bow to the parents. The crowd began to whisper, couple facing, wait. Someone rushed out of the crowd and spoke loudly. The etiquette was interrupted, and all I could see before my eyes was red cloth. I didn't know the situation, but this voice was all too familiar to me. I clenched my fist, stood up, and looked in that direction. General Hua. The others were also surprised. The 2 sons of the Hua family have returned victorious from leading troops into battle, with the eldest young master even being bestowed the title of ever-victorious general. He just returned today, basking in glory. What brings him here so suddenly? Could it be that the Du family invited him to a banquet, yet the Du family never valued this son and daughter-in-law, let alone this marriage? How could they possibly have invited him? But with Hui Yan's current prestige, the mother-in-law and father-in-law naturally welcomed him with smiles. General Hua graces us with his presence, yet the servants failed to announce him promptly. General, please take a seat and join us for a celebratory drink. But Hui Yan, clearly overwhelmed by emotion, spoke without thinking, his tone sharp and impulsive. I did not come for celebratory drinks. His discourteous tone undoubtedly embarrassed both his mother-in-law and father-in-law. The 2 of them looked rather displeased. In contrast, Hui Yan appeared travel-worn and aggressive, still clad in his armor. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, he fixed me with an intense, unwavering stare. The others followed his gaze toward me. This was entirely unexpected. It was clearly agreed beforehand that everyone would live their new lives separately, going their own ways without interference. So why did Hui Yan burst in during my wedding ceremony? And why is he staring at me in front of so many people? Never mind what others might think. If this gets out, how am I supposed to face the Du family? I steadied myself, yet still instinctively took a step back, but the next second, a hand steadied my waist, and a faint, bitter scent of medicine wafted over. I turned my head in surprise, but beneath the red bridal veil, all I could see was the person's crimson wedding robe, and their cool yet frail voice. General Hua, are you here for my younger sister? However, this is precisely the moment for my wedding ceremony with my newlywed wife. Why not wait for the servants to announce you, General, and join us for a celebratory drink? Although Hui Yan and Du Chiener's marriage had not been publicly announced, both families had already acknowledged it. And the prominent noble families of Jinling were naturally well aware of the arrangement. Given the circumstances, this statement wasn't entirely incorrect. At the very least, it provided Hui Yan with the perfect excuse. But when Hui Yan saw Du Roland's hand resting on my waist, his anger only grew fiercer. I didn't come here to, husband, I suddenly called out, my figure swaying slightly as I half collapsed into the arms of the person beside me, appearing somewhat exhausted. The person beside me stiffened for a moment, paused for a second, then still supported me. Such behavior from a newlywed couple shows deep affection. This was like a bucket of cold water, drenching Hui Yan thoroughly. Rua Lin. Seeing her eldest son, the mother-in-law was not as happy as expected, but rather distant. How come you're here? Weren't you supposed to be ill? The person holding me coughed twice, showing no warmth toward his mother, and replied indifferently, this is the day of my wedding ceremony. Husband and wife are one. Even with just one breath left, I should accompany my bride to complete the rites. With that, he looked up behind Hui Yan. My younger sister has arrived. As the words fell, Du Chiener's figure indeed appeared, but the disgust she had shown toward me was long gone. Instead, her face was full of delight. General, what brings you here? Huyen, who had been overwhelmed by a surge of emotions, finally regained his senses. He turned slowly to face the bashful Du Qianer. His back was drenched in cold sweat. Only then did he realize what he had just done. Now he has achieved fame and success, and is about to marry the daughter of a high-ranking official. A perfect match in social status. If he were to impulsively cause a scene at the wedding today, everything would be ruined, the marriage would fall through, his father would be disappointed, and the censors would impeach him. He would once again become the hopeless Huyen of his past life, only able to gaze upon the brilliance of second brother, all because of a single Pei Wan. Was it worth it? Huyen gave his answer, word by word, with difficulty. You're here to see Miss Du. I came in a hurry and didn't bring any gifts. I'm truly sorry to Mr. Du and Mrs. Du. My apologies. The answer is, it's not worth it. After this incident, the rooster used to humiliate me was removed. Someone was holding the other end of the red silk, just like me. Huyen sat among the male guests, watching this scene, finally, bow to each other as husband and wife, in a daze. He recalled the shy girl from his previous life who married him without a splendid wedding dress. Only wearing a red flower in her hair, he had promised to give her the grandest wedding. The sound was deafening, his eyes turning red with fury. Escort them to the bridal chamber. Thus, the wedding passed with a mix of fright and relief. After all the guests had left, Du Rollin entered the bridal chamber and dismissed the servants. The red candles in the room flickered silently. He lifted my red bridal veil. What met my eyes was a handsome yet pale face, even dressed in wedding attire. It could hardly add any vitality to him. The rumors were indeed true. The eldest son of the Du family was truly a sickly man, a sign of early demise. I blinked my eyes. He had already expressionlessly lowered the bridal veil and spoke. What happened today? I don't care about, nor will I investigate further. After all, you didn't marry me willingly. You miscalculated. With my frail and sickly body, even if I wanted to, I couldn't give you what you desire. On the contrary, I am not well regarded in this household, and marrying me will only bring you the same fate. So if you behave yourself in the future and stay quietly in the eastern courtyard, I can still ensure your safety. But if you insist on reaching for more, scheming and currying favor elsewhere, don't blame the consequences you'll bring upon yourself. His eyes were filled with weariness, not toward me, but toward the world. He looked as if he had given up entirely. Let it be, after I die, I'll give you a divorce letter and some gold and silver. No need to keep chastity for me, and don't bother me either. With that, he didn't even spare another glance before walking out the door. I spoke up. Husband, where are you going? He paused mid-step, turned to look at me with furrowed brows. Clearly, he disliked the term husband immensely, yet couldn't refute it. After all, we'd performed the wedding ceremony, making him indeed my husband. Thus he could only say, study. He never intended to share a bed with me. But just as he was about to leave, I already pulled him back. How could he leave the wedding night? If the groom leaves, I'll be the laughingstock tomorrow. It threatens my status and identity, and I won't allow it. He was already in poor health, too slow to react as I pulled him onto the bed, coughing incessantly, a mix of shock and anger. What are you doing? Naturally, it was the wedding night. The bridal sedan had arrived. The ceremony was completed. How could my husband say I was unwilling to marry him? He froze, then laughed at himself. With my sickly frame, who would willingly marry into this, me? Without hesitation, I shed my hairpins and skirts under his astonished gaze. A newlywed heiress widowed by her wealthy husband. Such good fortune is exactly what pleases me most now. So, I forcibly loosened the belt of the frail and aloof eldest son of the Du family, sealing his thin lips. My dear husband, let us consummate our marriage. The next day, hearing the knocking of the Du family servant who had been waiting, I got out of bed feeling refreshed and invigorated. The door was pushed open, and the old maidservant by my mother-in-law's side stared wide-eyed, trying hard to see inside. The next second, the basin in her hands dropped, and she exclaimed as she rushed toward the bed, "Young master!" The mottled red marks on Du Rollin's neck were visible as he wrapped himself in the quilt, his face dark with anger. Looking every bit like a deflowered maiden, ignoring the shocked gaze of the old maidservant, gritting his teeth, such petty behavior is disgraceful and unbefitting of a gentleman. Pei Wan, you, cough cough, the servants gathered around in shock. I straightened my collar. What a joke, I'm a woman, not a petty person, much less a gentleman. What's wrong with consummating the marriage with one's own husband on the wedding night? It's only natural. Du Rollin was also fed up and threw the handkerchief from the bed into the nanny's arms, scolding in a low voice, "Get out." The nanny saw the red stain on the handkerchief and couldn't help but speak the truth. "You actually dared to, after all." She was sent by my mother-in-law to witness our embarrassment, Du Rollin, a sickly man, and me, a daughter-in-law she never liked. There was plenty to be ashamed of, but who could have imagined? The nanny glanced at me, then at Du Rollin's slightly pale face, and the unmistakable red marks scattered across his fair neck. Du Rollin, a vein bulged on Du Rollin's forehead. "Get out!" The group scrambled away in panic, after the eldest son of the Du family fell into the water and became seriously ill. He plummeted from the heights of privilege into the depths of misery, undergoing a drastic change in temperament. He often secluded himself in the courtyard, disliking the presence of outsiders the most, even when it came to bathing and grooming. He insisted on doing everything himself. If a servant accidentally intruded, they would inevitably face his angry reprimands. All of this was well known to them, indeed. Though the eldest young master has now become the unwanted outcast in his parents' eyes, with the old Prime Minister still around, Minister Du and his wife, no matter how displeased they are, can only continue to pamper and appease him. The crowd dispersed. Du Rollin flung the quilt aside in a fit of pique, yet his hand trembled slightly as he reached for his robe. The next second, a hand naturally took what was offered to him. He looked up, glaring fiercely at me. "I don't need your charity. Get lost." He snatched his clothes away roughly, but was already covered in cold sweat after just putting on the inner garment. Yet I stood motionless, watching without blinking. Pride and face were at war within him, making his dressing increasingly disheveled. After several failed attempts, he punched the quilt in frustration. He collapsed onto the bed in self-abandonment, covering his eyes with the back of his hand. The sound of breathing, deep or shallow, was particularly noticeable in the quiet room. I didn't speak, just swiftly helped him put on his clothes. He muttered in a muffled voice, "Pei Wan, you said marrying me was your own choice, but now, looking at a useless man like me, don't you find your lie ridiculous?" I was puzzled. How could he be useless? Wasn't he just fine last night? Mentioning last night was a mistake. At the mention of it, Du Rollin, who had been listless, suddenly opened his eyes wide and glared at me. "You? How could you be so reckless, forcing me to? I will never forgive you." What nonsense was he babbling about? I kissed him smugly. "You'll have plenty more days ahead where you won't forgive me. I certainly don't want a future that's as bland as plain broth." He clearly understood the implication in my words, his face turning an unbelievable shade of red. "Shameless? How strange. What's there to be shy about after the wedding night? Didn't we see everything about each other last night?" Du Rollin was stubborn, believing he wouldn't live much longer. He naturally cared about nothing. His parents thought the same way, so when we went together to pay respects to his parents, they didn't spare me any face. The first to speak was the father-in-law. "Rollin is frail. Since you're marrying into this family, you must serve him well, with all your heart and effort." Du Rollin sneered. "I'm sick, not disabled. What's there to serve?" the mother-in-law added. "It'd be best if you could bear the eldest grandson. Don't be a hen that can't lay eggs and become a laughingstock." Du Rollin, "If I can't produce an heir, I won't blame a woman for it." "Mother, you speak so sweetly, but if a grandson were born before Du Ruiting, could you really laugh about it?" Then Du Chiener protested indignantly. "Big brother, what do you mean by that? How can you speak to father and mother like that? And you?" She pointed at me and lashed out. "If you can't even control your own husband, what good are you?" I opened my mouth to speak, but the person beside me sneered first. "Is this how you properly address your elder brother and sister-in-law, shouting disrespectfully at your elders? What good are you?" Bang! After a grand, drunken spree at the tavern, Du Ruiting returned in high spirits and slammed the table, shouting, "Du Rollin, don't think just because you're a sickly weakling the whole family has to indulge you. Defying our parents, making our little sister cry. Today I'm going to teach you a lesson." Du Rollin cast him a sidelong glance and sneered disdainfully. "And what are you, worthy of pointing fingers at me?" Rollin, previously, the mother-in-law, whom Du Rollin had confronted without any reaction, immediately changed her expression when Rollin mentioned the younger son, scolding, "How can you speak to your brother like that? In the future, this family will have to rely on your brother." She took it for granted that Du Rollin would eventually pass away to the west, and the Du family would naturally fall to Du Ruiting in the future. "Not just you, but even your new wife, if anything were to happen to you in the future, Wouldn't your younger brother have to take care of his widowed sister-in-law? Upon hearing this, Du Ruiting shouted, I refuse, the entire Du family belongs to me. Why would I want to raise a sickly child and a widow? If the words were spoken so bluntly. It clearly wasn't the first time they'd been said. No wonder Du Rollin treated them so harshly, completely opposite to how agreeable he'd been when he met me last night. I smiled, raising my hand to rest on Du Rollin's forearm. Speaking before he could, what kind of talk is this, brother-in-law? Although my husband may be somewhat frail, he is far from meeting an untimely end, as his younger brother, to curse your own elder brother like this, if word gets out. You'll surely face consequences when you enter officialdom. Du Qian'er disliked me the most. Seeing me speak up, she was about to retort when I turned my gaze to her. Young sister-in-law is about to be married. Similarly, if word spreads of you disrespecting your elder brother, who's to say it won't cast doubt on your otherwise promising marriage? What nonsense are you spouting? Brother Hua would never turn his back on me. When it came to marriage, Du Qian'er stamped her foot in anger. Joke. Whether Hui Yen gets locked up is none of my damn business. I raised my eyes to meet my in-law's gaze. My husband's words were inappropriate, truly the result of prolonged illness and depression, not intentional. As his new wife, I apologize to you both on his behalf. However, I shifted my tone and said slowly, speaking of which, our dynasty has always adhered to the ironclad rule of succession by the eldest legitimate son. If the eldest legitimate son passes away, the position passes to the eldest legitimate grandson. Only if both are absent does the responsibility of the family fall to the second son. Forgive my bluntness, mother-in-law, but what you just said was quite inappropriate and must never be spoken again. Don't you agree, father-in-law? The path of officialdom is treacherous. Reaching this position requires utmost caution and prudence. A single misstep could lead to political rivals filing accusations, bringing endless troubles that are impossible to shake off. My father-in-law naturally understood the implication in my words and squinted at me for a couple of seconds. I kept a straight face, as if I hadn't said anything at all, and looked at them innocently. My mother-in-law couldn't hold back and pointed at me. You're right, father-in-law finally spoke, his tone indifferent. Although we are at home this time, everyone must still be cautious in speech and conduct, especially you two. He pointed at Du Qian'er and Du Ruiting. If you continue to speak without restraint, don't blame me for confining you to the courtyard. But as for me and Du Rollin, he didn't even glance our way before leaving, merely uttering a faint remark as he passed by. As for you, you're on your own, the head of the household, and also holding a high position. What he couldn't stand the most was being manipulated or threatened. His eldest son, Du Rollin, was unfilial. Talking back and contradicting him was something he could tolerate, but for me, a newlywed bride, to also show such disrespect was unacceptable. That would be sheer ingratitude. But what does that have to do with me? Their admiration brings neither silver nor power. On the contrary, there would only be endless grievances to endure. Then why the hell should I keep enduring? I haven't forgotten the purpose of marrying into this family. Fortunately, the Prime Minister's wife hasn't forgotten either. The next day, she personally visited the Du residence. First, she checked on Du Rollin to ensure he was unharmed, even noticing he seemed more vibrant than before. Then, she held my hand and smiled, saying, I always said he was a good child, and he looks even more pleasing to the eye now. Finally, she turned to my mother-in-law and spoke, Weling. Now that the eldest son is married and the bride has entered the household, it's high time you taught her the ways of managing the inner quarters. The words were spoken tactfully, but anyone with discernment could grasp their underlying meaning. Young ladies were already taught household management long before they left their parents' home to marry. How could they possibly wait until arriving at their husband's home to learn from their mother-in-law? The words of the Prime Minister's wife were a veiled warning to her mother-in-law, urging her not to show favoritism and to relinquish the authority over the household that rightfully belonged to her. Upon hearing this, the mother-in-law's smile became strained. She cast a heavy glance in my direction. The old Prime Minister had a son who held a high-ranking position far in the southwest, and it was only natural for the couple to miss him dearly, to put it modestly. The old Prime Minister took such care of the Du family not because of Minister Du, his protégé, but because of Du Rollin, the child he watched grow up and undoubtedly regarded as his own grandson. This became especially evident after Du Rollin fell seriously ill from drowning. So much so that when the Du couple later deliberately neglected Du Rollin, Even the Prime Minister's wife came to admonish them, if Roland truly has the fate of a short life, he is still your child. How can you two be so short-sighted, favoring the younger son and treating him so poorly? My mother-in-law's response at that time was flawless. Weling, you're wronging me. This child has always had the same food and clothing as Rueding. When have my husband and I ever neglected her? The Prime Minister's wife was left speechless. Indeed, the food and clothing were the same, but some invisible things were different. For example, in private, my mother-in-law would also show impatience. Bringing him into this world was a trial in itself. We thought he'd be a prodigy, but who knew he'd turn into a sickly child within just a few years? At best, he might earn the Chancellor's pity for his wasted potential. Otherwise, that self-destructive attitude of his is nothing but an eyesore to me, she sneered. Call me biased. With my eldest son now useless, should I not focus on properly raising my second son, or should I spend my future days mourning the living dead? Indeed, it was her blatant favoritism that drove the Chancellor's wife to intervene in this matter. This was the promise she made when proposing the marriage, and also a slight protection for Du Rollin. But no matter the reason, I've obtained the authority to manage the household. In the courtyard, watching me fiddle with the abacus to check the accounts, Du Rollin's smile carried a hint of mockery. So this was your real purpose for marrying into this family, wasn't it? My fingers paused, and I looked up innocently. What are you talking about, husband? I don't understand. Yet my heart itched with excitement. The Du family was truly wealthy. Now, no matter how much those people looked down on me in their hearts, they had to show me respect on the surface. As for my mother-in-law, she had given me no shortage of trouble. But let's not forget, my mother was the daughter of a wealthy merchant. Did they really think they could outmatch me in matters of accounting? Time and again, I managed to suppress them all. The only one I couldn't directly deal with was probably my brother-in-law, Du Rueding. Originally, both Du Chiener and he had taken a dislike to me. At most, Du Chiener would only withdraw money to buy some jewelry and clothes. But Du Rueding spent much more, whether it was playing polo today or dining at a tavern tomorrow. Each outing cost hundreds of taels. Spoiled by his mother, he had no restraint. As a newlywed, I couldn't be too strict with him either. So much so that most of the time, he got away with it, but that was all there was to it. I finally got what I wished for. I didn't gain my husband's love, but I did obtain real silver and power. Du Rollin truly lived up to being a child prodigy. His body was injured, not his mind. He actually sees everything clearly, but is just too weary and lazy to expose it. At this moment, he sits aside, harboring a small revenge for my forcing him to comply on our wedding night. Enjoy your happiness now. For in 3 to 5 years, you won't have this feeling anymore. Me, why 3 to 5 years later? A wicked smile curled on Du Rollin's pale and handsome face. Because in 3 to 5 years, when I die of illness and you remain childless, that mother of mine will surely waste no time in handing over all the family fortune to her younger son. Otherwise, why do you think she so readily gave you the authority to manage the household? Click, an abacus bead fell to the ground. Du Rollin coughed again, very softly. Perhaps, it won't even take 3 to 5 years. My eyes darted around, and I suddenly stood up. Du Rollin thought I would dote on him and handle him with the utmost care. At the very least, I shouldn't keep taking advantage of his frailty to force his compliance, as I had before. In truth, he guessed only half of it. I did treat him better. I even sought out many physicians for him, but his illness had taken root long ago, and not even the imperial doctors could do anything about it. On the contrary, Du Rollin had to drink several more bowls of medicine because of this, but other than that, there was nothing else. I still forced him to do things he didn't want to do, cleaned him up thoroughly, dressed him quickly, and then felt refreshed to start another day of managing accounts and making money. It was as if nothing had changed at all. I quickly mastered all the affairs of the Du family's rear household, while Du Rueding continued to go out daily with his circle of friends. Someone asked him why he wasn't preparing for the imperial examinations. He waved his hand dismissively. With my talent, what couldn't I pass? Even if I failed, isn't there still my father? I'd still live comfortably. Not to mention that the Du family will all be mine someday. Meanwhile, Du Chiener was busy romancing Hui Yen. Several times, the two of them ran into me in the backyard. Hui Yen always seemed to want to say something when he saw me, but he remained silent because Du Chiener was present. He has finally fulfilled his lifelong wish, in this life, without acting on impulse and with the support of the Hua family. everything has been smooth sailing for him in the future. Forming a marriage alliance with the Du family will undoubtedly be like adding wings to a tiger. I have no thoughts on this matter. I merely asked Du Qian'er, "Are you really going to marry Huyen?" Du Qian'er was wary of me. "Why not? Isn't it just that you can't stand to see me marry well? Don't think I don't know. Pei Shu wants to steal my husband, and who knows if you, as her elder sister, might help her trip me up. Pei Wan, let me tell you, don't even think about scheming against me. If mother finds out, you'll be in big trouble." She was shouting about wanting a lavish dowry. As the one managing the accounts, I better not be stingy. I sighed and didn't say anything more. As for my mother-in-law, she is quite quiet. At least, we can still maintain a semblance of peace. Du Rollin was at a loss. We really stumbled through half a year like this. They say a day as husband and wife brings 100 days of affection, apart from forcing him to submit every half-month. I was actually quite good to him the rest of the time. At least I thoughtfully dressed him. Even the medicine he drank was carefully selected. Once during that time, he coughed up blood. That was the first time I saw Du Rollin in the throes of illness. His face deathly pale, his breath as faint as a wisp of smoke, as if he might stop breathing at any moment. In my panic, I summoned countless physicians, yet as he watched my frantic figure, all he said was, "Pei Wan, let it be." I paused and turned back. With blood still at the corner of his lips, he looked at me with an uncharacteristically gentle, self-mocking smile. "Forget it all, just as I said back then. Cough, after I die, there's a small box on the first shelf in the study. Inside, you'll find a letter of divorce and enough silver to secure your future. Don't mourn for me, remarry if you wish, and don't fight with my mother. Without me, you'll be the only outsider left in this household. You can't win against her, so, cough." He took a deep breath. "Take the silver and go. They say a man's words are kind when death is near." But even at this moment, Du Rollin and I, this ill-fated pair of lovebirds, couldn't resist exchanging a few bitter words. But I didn't. I suddenly stepped forward, grabbed him by the collar, and spoke word by word under his astonished gaze. "You're not allowed to die, Du Rollin. I won't let you die, at least, not now. I should be a cold-hearted person. If he dies before I've secured my footing, I'll lose." Just as he said, the current me is no match for her mother. I've sought out countless physicians for him, yet he remains unconscious. Everyone says he's beyond saving now. The Du family had already begun preparing for his funeral. I became the pitiable new bride in others' mouths, about to become a widow after just half a year of marriage. Even the old prime minister and his wife came to take a look, shook their heads, and left. My mother brought my younger sister to see me. She said that her younger sister had found a good match, and they were just waiting for an auspicious date to hold the wedding. She said that she was living quite comfortably, and their father was in good health too. She said, "Ah Wan, if it really comes to that, come home." She hesitated, leaving some words unspoken in the end. The little sister's eyes reddened, wanting to say something, but mother stopped her. Yet I still noticed. I grabbed her hand. "Mother, is everything really all right at home?" My mother held my hand in return and said with certainty, "Silly girl, with your mother here, what could possibly go wrong? Don't forget, your mother didn't survive till now by being a pushover, so as long as I'm here, nothing will happen." Everyone had left, only Du Rollin remained, lying unconscious on the bed for months, her breathing shallow and barely audible. A gust of wind blew past, a white pigeon landed beside my hand. A piece of paper tied to its foot. I looked up, untied it, and after reading the contents, my expression turned cold. I raised my hand and held it over the candle flame, watching unblinkingly as the words, "Just say yes, and I'll help you fake your death to escape," burned to ashes. Bang! At the same moment, the door was pushed open. The matron by the mother-in-law's side looked down condescendingly. "Madam, this way, please, the hard-won piece is about to be shattered." No sooner had I stepped into the main hall than a teacup came crashing down, its contents splashing onto my dress, followed by my mother-in-law's sharp rebuke. "How dare you remain standing? Kneel at once." I didn't argue and obediently knelt down, looking up. I had to admit, everyone who should be there was present. The father-in-law sat in the main seat, Du Qian'er gloated, the mother-in-law exuded authority without anger, and Du Ruoding chimed in, "That's right, it's all her fault. She deserves to kneel." I confess, what has my daughter-in-law done wrong to anger her father-in-law and mother-in-law so much? "You, how dare you even ask?" Mother-in-law sneered. Father-in-law just spoke. "I ask you, since you're in charge of the household accounts, when Ting comes to you for money, Do you always give it to him? I answered truthfully. If my brother-in-law asks, of course I give it. Then do you know what he's been spending all that money you gave him on? His father-in-law's tone changed. Only then did I take a closer look and realize that Du Ruoding had clearly been beaten, his face covered in bruises. I was puzzled. How dare I, as his sister-in-law, pry into my brother-in-law's private affairs? Yes, if it were just the usual monthly allowance, it would indeed be inappropriate to ask, but you gave him 10,000 taels of silver. Shouldn't you have questioned that? The father-in-law glared in anger. Do you know that every time you casually gave him money, he gambled it all away? You are like a mother to me as the elder sister-in-law, yet I don't know how you bewitched the Prime Minister's wife into meddling with our family affairs, even securing the household authority for yourself. My mother-in-law seemed exasperated, as if disappointed by my lack of progress, yet I trusted the Prime Minister's wife and you after all, so after handing it over, I didn't interfere, lest others accuse me of favoritism toward my younger son. But I never expected you to be so utterly incompetent. Failing to manage the accounts is one thing, but you even let Ruoding develop a gambling habit. How can our Du family tolerate you any longer? I told you so. What else can the daughter of a merchant woman do besides some dirty tricks? My parents insisted on indulging her, and now look at the mess she's caused. Du Chiener exaggerated the story, making it sound as if the Du family had treated me so well. After finishing, she looked at me as if enjoying a spectacle and said, Sister-in-law, my eldest brother is about to be gone. Everyone knows father only has our little brother left as his son, who will carry the family's burden in the future. No matter how malicious you are, you shouldn't lead him astray like this, and the imperial examination is just around the corner. When the imperial examination was mentioned, the eunuch's face darkened even more, glaring fiercely at Du Ruoding. You wretched creature! Du Ruoding would never admit fault and immediately pointed at me without hesitation. Father, this isn't my fault, it's all her. She gave me whatever I wanted. I've heard this is called spoil to destroy. It's all the dirty tricks used in big households to fight over inheritance. She clearly wants the family fortune. That's why she deliberately got me addicted to gambling. Every word condemns me. Finally, the mother-in-law concluded with, truly, the whole family is disgraceful. Just yesterday, her petty official father's mistress even came knocking on our door, and she brought along a son who's almost 8 years old. Mother-in-law, what do you mean by that? Suddenly, I understood. And my expression finally changed. She curled her lips into a smile, quite pleased with my reaction. Don't you know yet? Your mother is so jealous she can't tolerate others, so your father keeps a mistress outside. Yesterday, she came to make a scene, and now the whole of Jinling is in an uproar. To be honest, your lack of virtue is inherited from your family. Thinking about it now, perhaps if Ruolin hasn't woken up, it's because of you. Who knows if you resent marrying a sickly man? I retorted, I have never resented it, nor have I harmed my husband in the slightest. With Ruolin unconscious, who can say for sure? The mother-in-law chuckled lightly. With such wickedness as yours, our family cannot keep you. Here is a letter of divorce. Go back to wherever you came from. But, I looked at these people and asked, my husband hasn't woken up yet. Who wrote this letter of divorce? It was indeed I who wrote it for my elder brother. Du Ruoding was desperate to shift the blame. He pulled a piece of paper from his waist and threw it at my feet. Get out now. Ridiculous, given Du Ruolin's level of disgust toward this scoundrel. If she found out he had also written a divorce letter on her behalf, one can only imagine how furious she would be. Fortunately, everyone found out soon enough. Behind me, a hoarse, deep voice spoke up, on my behalf. How about you die in my place instead? The crowd looked around in shock. Ruolin. Du Ruolin was being supported by others, his already pale face looking even worse due to his terrible mood. He walked up behind me. What? Are you all so disappointed that I didn't die? How could that be? The mother-in-law spoke with difficulty. He didn't look at this biased mother, only somewhat guiltily at me. I'm late, and I've wronged you. I didn't move. Heroine. When I looked again, he had already frozen in place, just because of my reddened eyes that met his gaze. It's nothing. As long as my husband is well, Awan is not wronged. His lips trembled slightly, as if deeply moved, yet, with tears in my eyes, I looked at the others and said, just now, everyone has pointed out Peiwan's faults, which shows that Peiwan, as a daughter-in-law, has indeed been remiss. Peiwan admits it, but allow Peiwan to ask a few questions. May I ask, mother-in-law, when my brother-in-law came to withdraw silver, I did mention that the amount was too large to be easily dispersed. Yet he caused a commotion in the inner quarters, claiming it was with your permission. Is this true? The mother-in-law flatly denied. Of course it's false. I continued. Then why was it that whenever I sent someone to verify with you, mother-in-law, you were always unavailable behind closed doors? The mother-in-law opened her mouth and insisted. I'm old now, so of course I've handed over authority to you. If I were to interfere in everything, people would gossip about me. Just as she was about to lose the argument, the father-in-law immediately said, in that case, am I dead? Why didn't you ask me? Me, I did ask, the father-in-law immediately retorted with righteous indignation. How dare you slander me in front of everyone? When did I ever see you ask about this? I replied, since I entered this household, I've recorded my husband's monthly health condition and submitted it to you for review. This matter was included in those reports. You never responded before, so I assumed it was tacitly approved. Naturally, I believed it to be true, or perhaps, you never actually read those reports before. My father-in-law, of course he wouldn't admit it. I've certainly read it, otherwise, would he have to admit to neglecting his own son and leaving him to his fate? But if he had read it, why would this situation have occurred today? My father-in-law stammered. Perhaps, it was overlooked. I chimed in. Was it overlooked? Once might be an oversight, but my brother-in-law withdrew money over 10 times, and I recorded it each time. How could you have overlooked it every single time? Father-in-law, Du Rollin let out a cold laugh. At this point, what else was there left to understand? He couldn't even be bothered to argue, as if his heart had already turned to ice, and merely said, if my parents truly favor my younger brother to this extent, taking advantage of my illness to bully my wife, then today I shall invite the elders of our clan to witness my removal from the family register, leaving me to fend for myself. Outrageous. Family scandals should not be aired in public. Are you trying to shame me? The father-in-law was furious upon hearing this. Du Rollin retorted sharply, is it not shameful for parents to bully their eldest son's wife just to fight for the family property for their younger son, who told her to marry a sickly man like you? If you can't protect her, who else is to blame? Du Rollin had no idea how serious the situation was. All he knew was that his eldest brother and their parents had finally torn off all pretenses, so he simply spoke his mind. Little did he know that as soon as these words were spoken, the entire room fell into silence. Breaking the silence was the urgent report from my family's servant. Miss, come home quickly, something has happened to the master. As for what happened, it seems that yesterday his mistress came to our door with their son, flaunting their status, but my mother drove them away for making baseless accusations. That night, my father had a fierce argument with my mother. Nothing more than his desire to take a mistress as a concubine and have his illegitimate son recognized by the family. Otherwise, he threatened to divorce her. With this commotion over the mistress, the good reputation he had maintained for years was ruined. But my mother only responded with a cold laugh. She refused to allow the woman into the household, and if he divorced her, she would take the matter to the authorities. She didn't violate the 7 grounds for divorce. My father accused her of jealousy, but when she offered to arrange a concubine for him, it was he who pretended to be devoted and refused. She didn't bear a son, but it was my father who told his colleagues he only wanted her and never cared about having a son. The fault isn't hers, she has all the time in the world to wait it out, but if they think she'll step aside to make room for someone else, they're dreaming. My father was so furious that he left home, presumably to confront his mistress. Unexpectedly, he happened to catch her in the act with her lover. Now, he wasn't even sure if the child was his. Blinded by rage, he collapsed on the spot from a stroke, fearing they might be held responsible for his death. The mistress and her lover fled overnight with the child. By the time someone found my father, he was already twitching uncontrollably, unable to utter a single word. My mother was quite pleased with this outcome. I merely intended to crush his spirit. Never expected he'd be so fragile under pressure. Well, no matter, paralysis is for the best, saves me the trouble of looking at his wretched face. Awan, this is the fate that awaits all heartless men. By the way, did your mother-in-law succeed in her scheme? Indeed, everything was part of my plan. During Du Rollin's recovery period, I knew he would wake up today. I also knew my mother-in-law had sent that mistress to cause a scene. And I was aware that my brother-in-law withdrew money to gamble, but things didn't go as my mother-in-law had imagined. My brother-in-law wasn't pretending to gamble, he was genuinely addicted. Now, her plan has failed, losing both her money and her dignity. And on the way back, Du Rollin remained unusually silent. It wasn't until nightfall that he finally spoke to me. Awan, I'm going to participate in this year's imperial examination. Du Rueting's words had truly provoked him, he said. I originally thought that if I lived or died on my own, they would be satisfied, but I didn't expect that before I could die and give you the divorce letter to set you free, they would already be impatient to harm you. He's right, I'm useless, that's why they dare to. He wasn't a bad person at heart, just that prolonged illness had made his words sharper, but deep down, he truly didn't want to burden me, so he said, I'll try to live a little longer, at least, get you settled properly. You see, he's just that easy to fool. He actually believed I'd suffer endlessly without him. Smiling, I wiped the corner of my eye and nestled in his arms, replying, then you must live a long life. The prodigy truly lives up to his name. After deciding to participate in the spring imperial examination, he personally sought out the old prime minister. The prime minister, who cherished talent, was naturally delighted upon hearing the news. He was more than willing to impart all his knowledge. Thus, during this period, he was quite busy and worried that in his absence, my mother-in-law might make things difficult for me, but this time he overthought it. His mother-in-law currently had no time to mind him, let alone trouble me. First, Du Rueting was also set to take part in this imperial examination. Second, Du Qianer and Huiyan's wedding was approaching. As the eldest daughter-in-law, I naturally had to help with the preparations. She must be out of her mind to give me a hard time at this moment. After all, if I were truly malicious, it would be her daughter's wedding that gets ruined. Besides, I don't have time to engage in a battle of wits with her. I'm far too busy. I might not need to put much effort into Du Qianer's wedding, but I absolutely cannot leave Du Rollin's medicine to others. Not to mention, I have something even more important to prepare for. My younger sister, Pei Shu, is also getting married. Her husband was the man she married in her previous life. The family background wasn't particularly noble, but all conditions were quite decent. It was carefully chosen by her mother. In her previous life, her younger sister married into that family and lived very happily, with a loving marriage and harmonious relationships with sisters-in-law. So when mother asked for my opinion, I didn't object. However, on the day of the wedding, my younger sister looked at the two sets of jade hair ornaments and asked me in confusion, aren't these one set for elder sister and one for me? Why are you giving me yours too? I shook my head. This is for obedient children. Big sister isn't obedient, so big sister can't have it. Back then I was too young, thinking that being with the one I loved was enough, so I didn't care about anything else. But I forgot that people's hearts change easily, and they say it's natural for hearts to change. So it's only right that I don't deserve to have this set of jewelry. They should rightfully bear the consequences of their misdeeds. On my way back, I encountered Huiyan blocking the path. It had been a long time since we last met. He looked somewhat haggard, as if he had been drinking. Fortunately, there was no one around. I saw him calm. What do you mean by this, brother-in-law? He was about to marry Du Qianer, but he doesn't seem happy either. Drunk and teary-eyed, he laughed bitterly and said, Awan, I don't want you to call me brother-in-law. Why did it turn out like this? Why did it turn out like this? In this lifetime, I didn't choose you, yet why am I still not as dazzling as my younger brother? Why did the princess still not choose me? Why must I settle for marrying Du Qianer? I thought I would marry the princess, and you wouldn't be wronged by being my concubine. But why is everything so different from what I imagined? He rambled on, but I understood. And I laughed. So, after being reborn, not only does he not plan to marry me, but he also wants me to be his concubine. Did he really think I, Pei Wan, could be blind twice? Huiyan, you're both conceited and arrogant, but you've forgotten there's always someone better in skies beyond skies. A truly capable person shines brightly anywhere, with or without you. I'm truly grateful that heaven gave me a chance to start over. Otherwise, my child and I would have suffered with you. Child? What child? Huiyan's drunkenness instantly vanished as he sharply turned his gaze toward me. I pulled down the curtain and spoke with a mocking tone. That day when you were drunk, you pushed him away. Just 2 months ago, I buried him in the yard, that fresh mound of earth. Huiyan froze on the spot, motionless. Days passed like this. Huiyan married Du Qianer, but their marriage was far from harmonious. Du Qianer was domineering, while Huiyan, who considered himself unrecognized talent, desired a gentle, tolerant, and understanding virtuous wife, Du Qian'er clearly was not. Thus, the couple's expressions were off when they returned from the bridal visit, not to mention a year later, when Du Qian'er stubbornly refused to let Hui Yan take a concubine, leading him to keep a mistress outside and play the hero rescuing a damsel in distress. One farce after another unfolded. But none of this concerned me anymore, because Du Rolin topped the imperial examination, becoming the top scholar. On the day the results were announced, we were overjoyed. Father-in-law seemed lost in thought, while mother-in-law's expression turned extremely unpleasant. No other reason. Du Ruoding failed the exam. When they found him, he was still gambling excitedly in the gambling den. He was beaten with the family discipline by his father-in-law, but it was no use. He couldn't quit, couldn't change. His mother-in-law had tried to intervene, but whenever she did, Du Ruoding would shout, "Are you favoring Du Rolin too? Seeing that I failed the exams, you're quick to switch sides. Father favors him now, and so do you." The mother-in-law was left speechless, her grievances unspoken. Du Ruoding, however, remained unafraid. "What if you passed the exam? A sickly weakling like you will die in a few years anyway, and then all the family property will be mine. Let's see who will take care of you in your old age and bury you." He had been spoiled rotten, unexpectedly. He even ran into Hui Yan at the brothel, who had come to drown his sorrows after being overshadowed by his younger brother. Two men who considered themselves unrecognized talents and overshadowed by their brothers instantly hit it off, bonding over their shared sense of injustice. They became close friends. At the time, no one could have imagined that just two individuals would cause such a massive disaster. Hui Yan and Du Ruoding were determined to make their mark in the world. He actually opened a gambling den and embezzled public funds to cover the losses. On the day it was discovered, his mother-in-law fainted on the spot. His father-in-law was severely scolded by the emperor. He had long since lost the emperor's favor, and after Du Rolin entered officialdom, the old prime minister naturally supported Du Rolin instead of him. Now that Du Ruoding has caused this mess again, it seems as if he has aged 10 years overnight. On the contrary, Du Rolin has become a favorite in the emperor's eyes. By that time, we had already been married for 4 years, and he was still sickly. Yet, contrary to everyone's expectations, he didn't suddenly pass away. Instead, it was his mother-in-law who came to plead for Du Ruoding's sake. Accompanying her was Du Qian'er. This was a premeditated move, for they had not only come themselves but also brought along elders from the clan to jointly exert pressure. Yet, before they could even speak, Du Rolin took a stack of papers from my side. He spoke. "You've all come at just the right time." Rolin was about to seek advice from the elders of the clan. "Over the years, my mother and sister have caused no small amount of trouble, disturbing the peace of our household, but recently they have repented and are willing to voluntarily enter the Buddhist hall to cultivate and atone for their mistakes." "When did I ever say that?" Du Qian'er shrieked. "Du Rolin, I came here to ask you to save my husband." "Hui Yan, what kind of talk is this?" "Rolin, my mother-in-law had a bad feeling and looked at me." "Is it you? Are you the one stirring up trouble between me and my son? She really has a sharp eye for people." "It really was me." Du Rolin passed these papers down. "These are bribes that mother has been collecting in father's name over the years, all squandered by my younger brother. These are records of the trouble caused by my younger sister and her husband, though it was a family matter. Because of her husband's philandering, she nearly beat a courtesan to death in secret. Now that my younger brother and brother-in-law have been exiled 3,000 miles away, these dirty deeds can hardly be concealed. Do you all believe that mother and my younger sister are sincerely repentant by going to the Buddhist hall for spiritual practice?" As his words fell, those who had been supporting the mother-in-law and Du Qian'er immediately changed their tune. "Yes, of course. I say we should send them for a lifetime. Having this intention is good enough. Send them quickly. If we don't send them, are we just waiting for the scandal to break and disgrace the entire clan? As for whether they want to or not, that's not important." When the mother-in-law and Du Qian'er were dragged away, the former still refused to accept her fate. "Ungrateful son, how dare you treat your own mother like this? Don't forget, I gave birth to you. Where is your father? How dare you deal with me behind his back? You have some nerve." Du Qian'er clearly lost her momentum and began pleading for mercy. "Big brother, I was wrong. I was really wrong. I won't dare anymore. Sister-in-law, please speak for me. I was really wrong." Du Rolin remained unmoved. "My father is currently summoned by His Majesty, likely unable to protect even himself. let alone my mother. It's all because of her accepting bribes in my father's name. As for the debt of life my mother owes me for giving birth, he looked at his mother-in-law. I've never understood why mother always favored my younger brother. That year when I was 10, it was clearly he who pushed me into the lake. Yet mother told me not to say another word about it. All these years, my younger brother has done as he pleased, while I lay seriously ill, and you never once spared me a proper glance. Very well, I have agreed to your demand, never to mention how he pushed me. Consider this my repayment for the debt of your birthing me. His words were resolute, leaving no room for negotiation. The mother-in-law froze, her eyes widening in shock. Du Rollin, Pei Wan, may you die a horrible death. Her voice grew fainter and fainter until it disappeared. Du Rollin remained motionless, until everyone had dispersed. He suddenly asked me blankly, Wan, did I do something wrong? The next second, he spat out a mouthful of blood and collapsed into my arms. Rua Lin, for so many years, it was the first time I felt so panicked. He smiled weakly. Enough, all these years, I've held on to this last breath. Just to see you properly settled at last. If that's the case, then it's enough. My eyes reddened as I choked back sobs. Don't talk nonsense, don't die. But how can one simply choose not to die? Du Rollin smiled bitterly. Ah Wan, don't cry. I'm sorry for you. In the days to come, life will be hard for you. My tears fell on his face, yet I said, of course I should cry. But what hardship do I have? Now I am the mistress of the Du family. And the vast fortune of the Du family is all mine. I just want to cry for the unlucky little one in my belly who lost his father before he was even born. Du Rollin's eyes, which were about to close, suddenly snapped open. What did you say? Coming to his senses, he struggled in my arms to raise his hand. Put me down, I can still live. I burst into laughter through my tears. He was lying. Du Rollin ultimately lived to the age of 37. The doctor said it was already a miracle. The year he died, our son was 14 years old. He arranged for our son to study under a renowned Confucian scholar of the time and secured for me the highest honorary title for a noblewoman. Everything was meticulously arranged. It was him who died, so his wife, children, and family property wouldn't be coveted by the clan. Before his death, he leaned against me and said with relief, all these years, I never asked you that question. I suppose now, even if I did, you wouldn't necessarily lie to say what I wanted to hear. So, Wan, I'll just ask you another question. I asked him, what? He exerted all his strength. In the next life, would you still be willing to be my wife? I don't have that many fake tears left to shed. Back then, to help him establish his career, I pretended to cry to urge him to take the imperial exams. Later, to let him live a few more years, so our child wouldn't be left with only a widowed mother. I squeezed out a few more drops. Now everything is beyond remedy. I have no tears left to shed, yet somehow it hurts more than crying. It was also the first time I realized that even when one is utterly heartbroken, they can still manage to smile. He smiled contentedly and slowly closed his eyes, never to open them again. He left. This time it's real, and I, the daughter-in-law of the Minister of Personnel, wife of the current Right Chancellor, mother of the future Marshal Marquis, a titled noblewoman. Pei Wan, I lived for 86 years. Throughout my life, I managed the household, experiencing all its ups and downs, yet I'm still grateful that Du Rollin never asked me whether I loved him, because even I didn't know the answer. If blame must be placed, then blame my father's so-called devotion for being nothing but an illusion, and blame the fact that in my past life, I met Hui Yen instead of him. A man can make mistakes repeatedly, but he shouldn't fall into the same pit for the third time. As for Du Rollin, I dare not gamble, nor do I wish to. I don't know if I love him or not, but when he asked me before his death if I would marry him again in the next life, I didn't hesitate. I am willing, Du Rollin, if there is a next life, I am willing to marry you again.